This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Detroit Sports Podcast listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. That's theathletic.com/DSP for 20% savings.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to name it on front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. As always, I am your host, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter at Jarvie the King. And with me, as always, John the Doc Macaroon. What's up? We had a busy week.
It was something to see, Jason, this last weekend of playoff football. And I sit here today, and I like to be proven right. And this weekend, when you see which quarterbacks and which teams were able to advance to the NFC and AFC title games, I was proven right. You did not need to, as a Lions organization, drop $27 million on your quarterback when a guy named Case Keenum, a guy named Blake Bortles is going to be showing up playing football next Sunday.
John, you're already going to start this with me right now. We're not like 2 minutes into this podcast.
You have
already
to say
making me angry.
You have to say, Jason, when you watched this weekend and you saw what happened, what was able to go down, you saw defenses that were able to produce, you saw quarterbacks that were not as highly touted as Matthew Stafford go out and do some things. But I could make the argument that in order to get over that hump, then you need a quarterback maybe like a Matthew Stafford that can get you to the Super Bowl and win. But at the same time, when you're the Lions and you've seen this dude now for 9 seasons and you have not yet sniffed a playoff victory, the last time that we all got together and watched the Lions play football, they went on the road to Seattle. Dude didn't throw a touchdown pass. The offense looked really shoddy and it looked out of sync, out of whack. Wide receivers were dropping the ball left and right. And then you see Case Keenum. Dude is now the mayor of Minnesota. They cannot cut him. They cannot trade him. They're going to have to franchise him. Dude's going to make 23. No.
They're going to cut him.
You think that the Minnesota Vikings, after what he just did, are going to cut Case Keenum? Forget it. No way.
I think Pat Shurmur is going to go to Arizona, and he's going to take Case Keenum with him, a la Any Given Sunday.
That is what people are talking about.
I can't believe you're starting with this, that it's all on Matt Stafford.
Whenever you watch the postseason, you have to kind of go back to the Detroit Lions and say, dude, a bunch of quarterbacks are starting to win that are not as talented as Matthew Stafford. And so, look, I'm not saying the Lions are losing because of Matthew Stafford. I'm saying
we're losing because the guys aren't putting the right players around him.
I'm saying that if you want to build differently, now if you want to go back in hindsight and say if the Lions wanted to be further along than where they currently are, they could have focused their attention on that defense that was ranked second back in 2014. They could have built through it and gotten, and had they decided to blow out Jim Caldwell, get that defensive wizard as a head coach, bring him in here and build a world-class defense, then just have an offense that can get you by. I'll take a 15-10 win all day. I don't need a rah-rah quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger to throw for 500 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then give up 42 points. I don't want that. I want to win. And so the Lions, I think, are on that path now where they're going to get that defensive coordinator. All the reports say that Matt Patricia is the guy. And I do believe they're going to build a defense that is going to try and compete to win it all. I say in terms of building a football team, most people don't need a $27 million quarterback. Those that do are not in the postseason. And so that's where the philosophy changed. We're not talking about Matthew Stafford. We're talking about the position and the pay. If you allocate $15 million to Matthew Stafford or you allocate $15 million to the quarterback position in that neighborhood and you find the right guy to just manage the game and you get that defense that's going to stop everybody, all you got to do is just look over the pond. Look over to what Minnesota's doing. They have a chance to go out on the road in Philadelphia versus Nick Foles and to earn a spot to play in the Super Bowl in their home arena.
What does Minnesota have that the Detroit Lions don't have.
A running back and an outstanding defense and a better head coach.
Exactly. We don't have any of those. But I will argue at this point that I'll take any coach at this point, whether it's Matt Patricia, whether it's Mike Vrabel, whether they want to call up Jimmy Caldwell again, have him come back and coach the team. If we had a running back like Leonard Fournette, like Kareem Hunt, we'd be in the playoff. We'd have playoff success because that's what every other team has. They have that running back, and I think that starts everything there. With the running game, you start the pass game through the run game. You run to be able to pass. And then with that run game, you get time of possession. You're able to have the ball for longer, so your defense isn't constantly out there. So it just I really want the Lions to go out and get a running back this season. And I mean, we can talk more about the coaching, but I think that's first and foremost. Past the defensive line, I think you have to go out and you need to get. I'm not saying trade away everything and move up and get Saquon Barkley, even though I'd love to see that. I think you need to. If there's one thing you need to fix this offseason, you need to address whatever it is, the running game in Detroit.
But don't you also need to address that defense?
We need to address the defense. I think the defense comes, and I think that's just going to be a given. We have players on our team. We're going to get Kerry Hyder back next season. The guy went out. He didn't even play a snap this year. Who knows what's going to happen with Ezekiel Ansah in the offseason. And I'm sure that they're going to draft more defensive players, but we need to figure out what we're doing at this run with the run game, because Theo Riddick is a nice pass catching option, and Tion Green may be a guy for the future, but the rest, it's a big question whether you go out and you spend big in the draft and you get one of those three big guys who could be first rounders, or whether it's a combination of picking up guys through free agency. They have to do something, and they need to address this.
Okay, first question. I think you brought up a good point. Many people are talking about it. Based on what you saw with Ezekiel Ansah and his production, he got a boatload of sacks in basically 3 games this season. The rest of the season, many people, when they watched him on film, when they kind of watched and evaluated what he was able to do, they kind of felt like he just wasn't the same guy. He just, maybe towards the end of the season, the latter half, the last 3 games of the season is when he kind of got back to where you thought he could be. But if you're going to allocate big money deals to Ezekiel Ansah at 29 years old, and he doesn't get on the field, it's going to be wasted money. So, in your opinion, should the Lions bring back Ezekiel Ansah? Is that the right move? Or, similar to what the Patriots do, they're known, the Patriot way, for exactly knowing when to part ways with a player that's not going to produce and bringing in the next guy, next man up. Bob Quinn's not exactly there yet. We have a lot of questions in terms of the moves that he's making, but do you bring back Ezekiel Ansah?
I think it'll be a big testament as to who's really running this team. If we let go Ziggy Ansah, then Bob Quinn, this is his team. He's making his mark. And I think that probably at this point is the right move. It's hard to let a guy like Ziggy Ansah go. It's not as hard as when we had to let Ndamukong Suh go, because that was a guy who he played every snap, and he was the most dominant player at his position. And while we've seen Ziggy Ansah have flashes, and it would be nice if he could go back to his old form, but Ziggy Ansah at this point, I think we can't give him max money. We can't pay him like he's one of the top 5 defensive ends in the sport of football, because if he's only going to be on the field for 4 or 5 games, and let's say that he's on the field for another 5 to 6 games at like 70%, it's not going to do. And it would be old Lions to go out and give him his contract, and it would smell just like DeAndre Levy, that the guy played his heart out for the Lions. You give him his money, and now where's DeAndre Levy?
That's the big question. That's the big risk you take in giving this guy the big money. Is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to be on the field? Is he going to be productive? If he can live up to what he's done, then you obviously go out and pay him. The big question mark is, can he stay on the football field? Is he an individual that's going to be 100% and be a dog at 29 years old, when you can go out there, and many people will say when you build a football team, you got to build through the draft, and you got to go out there and replenish guys over and over, because with a new coaching staff as much as 50 to 60% of that roster is going to be turned over with a new coaching staff that's going to be probably emphasizing the defense. So,
I mean, who knows if we're even in the same scheme as we are next year. We're in the 4-3. Matt Patricia, known for switching it up and really using the 3-4. I mean, for the longest time, Vince Wilfork was a staple on the New England Patriot defense, and he was that big nose tackle. You know, I do see a guy like A'Shawn Robinson. He could fit that nose tackle position. It's going to be all about rotating guys in, and I think we just need to start fresh. And you know, we let go of Jim Caldwell last season. I think last season was the start when we let go of DeAndre Levy, and we didn't bring him back. And I think we just need to continue this, and we need to get depth at players. You know, I think you're starting to see it in the defensive backfield. You know, with Darius Slay has finally come into his own. People are starting to say some things about Teez Tabor, the guy who all season you were waiting and hoping to see him come on, and they're talking that they could actually be a very good cornerback duo in the NFL. You still have Glover Quinn, he's an all-pro player, and you get the development of Miles Killebrew and Quandre Diggs. You got to be excited, at least a little bit excited about that. So I think the rest of the defenses should come along with whoever they bring in. I think I really do. It'll probably be Matt Patricia, and that's another conversation that this whole week there was when we started talking last week. It was Matt Patricia's going to be the guy. Midway through the week, we're like, oh, well, why would he ever want to come to the Lions when he could go to the New York Giants? And you know, just yesterday, Schefter came out, said that Lions are telling everybody else that they've interviewed that you're not going to be needed here, and that Matt Patricia is going to be the guy. So I think the defense is going to get fixed.
See, now we just got a tweet from another podcast from Boston, and literally perfect timing. It just came through, and it's from the Off the Wagon podcast, a New England Patriots-based podcast. It says, coming from a Pats fan, I really don't like that Patricia hiring for you. He's smart, but I don't think he's going to do much for you guys. Oh, my goodness. Because people in Detroit, it was really weird because many people do look at Peter King and his reporting as being skeptical based on some inaccuracies that he's had in years past. And then he kind of put out this story, and it was kind of a back of the, down the line kind of thing in terms of where it was. It was just kind of a little blurb where it said that Matt Patricia favored the Giants, and it might just be something that he's heard through the grapevine. But in terms of where the best fit is right now in terms of a working relationship, the Lions seem to be the best fit for Patricia. And so when the news broke last week that he might be favoring the Giants, I don't think it had to do with Patricia. It kind of had to do with the Lions and our ego, kind of like courting that nice-looking woman, and she looks at you and just turns her back. We don't want that feeling, but we want the feeling of, hey, if we target you, Matt Patricia, you come here. Now we have to take a really serious look at, many people they don't have their heads in their clouds. They don't draw hearts all over Matt Patricia and be like, this guy's a savior. They're being critical because of the Lions organization and the fact that several of the coaches coming from the Bill Belichick tree haven't been successful. So many people are keeping their minds about them, their wits about them. They're staying rational, and I agree with them. I feel like it's the number one guy available. Can he, though? And the big question that everybody has is, can that guy do enough to come here and lift the Lions and whatever they got going on in terms of what ails them? Can he lift them to do the job? Everyone says he's smart. Everyone says that he can do the job. But when you become a head coach, it's just a totally different ballgame than when you're a coordinator.
That would be one of my concerns, is that I think he does a very good job with the Patriots and as the defensive coordinator, but we're not getting Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator. We're getting Matt Patricia, the head coach. So I think if he does end up coming here, I think a lot's going to ride on who does he bring in to be his defensive coordinator. I mean, is he going to be the guy who actually runs that defense, or is he going to essentially be crafting it and then having somebody else run that? So I think there's that aspect. And yeah, you got to have your reservations about this guy, and really about anybody coming in, because there really isn't any one savior. Because we're never gonna. I don't think. Is there any coach that you would think would come in that would be a savior?
Oh my God,
not really.
Tweets are flying in here about both of our topics regarding Ziggy Ansah and Matt Patricia. Regarding Ziggy Ansah, Darren Weber writes in, yes, now is definitely the time to bring back Ansah with his value low, just as long as they sign him at the low rate and not the Ansah of 3 years ago.
But that's not the way the NFL works. You
Right.
can't sign him at a low rate. I mean,
Right.
you're talking Madden football at this point. Like, you sign him for only like $2 million.
Yep.
It doesn't work, man.
Yep, the Off the Wagon replied to my text back, and he said, Patricia is a defensive coach under Belichick. First-time head coach, has shown some under-the-radar immaturity, no experience building a team. I think he has bust written all over him. Think Eric Mangini with a beard.
See, the one thing that I want to say with that is that's the big stick, is that no coach outside of Bill Belichick, when they leave the Belichick blanket, that they never succeed. The one thing that I'll say is, how many times does an assistant coach under Bill Belichick leave and go to a team that is also being GM'd by somebody from the Belichick tree? I mean, how many times has that happened? Now, I want to say that happened maybe in Kansas City with, I think Scott Pioli was there for a little while, but you haven't seen, the coaches leave, but we would have a Belichick coach, and we would have essentially a Belichick GM in Bob Quinn. I mean,
Oh my gosh. Pete Larman comes in. He says, how about a Romeo Crennel 2.0? Is that what we're getting? I kind of thought that this guy was like, is it because of the fact that he's a rocket scientist? Is it because of the fact that he's worked with Bob Quinn, or that he's worked alongside Bill Belichick? Many people are coming in sour so far on this episode. My goodness.
Dude, it's way too early. The guy isn't even here yet, and we're starting to criticize this coach. I think you have to wait. First, he has to get here, and then let's see what happens in the draft. Then you can start criticizing what he's doing. Until then, what's going to make those people happy? Nothing's going to make those people happy. I mean, if you ask them, hey, Bill Cowher is thinking about coming out of retirement, and he's going to be the head coach of the Lions. Oh, he's going to be a boss. He hasn't been a coach for so long. Wouldn't work. Same thing with John Gruden. You're not going to make everybody happy. We just have to hope that Bob Quinn is putting us in the best position to essentially the ultimate goal, win a Super Bowl.
What's your take? Are you hopeful when you heard the news that Patricia was kind of maybe favoring the Giants, and now that it's kind of a done deal, reports are now coming out at the time of this recording that the Lions are telling the other candidates, look, it's not going to happen here. We're moving on. So basically, whenever the Patriots get eliminated, pretty soon thereafter, they're probably going to hire Matt Patricia. What do you think? I was a little relieved, because during the week, with all the reports out about him favoring the Giants, it was a same old Lions thing. It's like, man, this is the guy that we really wanted, that we were starting to rally around. Another team's coming in and is going to be able to swoop in and get him. It would be disappointing, because he was the first choice. Mike Vrabel, yeah, he's a new coach, but Mike Vrabel smells so much like Brad Ausmus. That would make me... It would just send the hairs on my back would stand up. And really, the only other guy outside of Matt Patricia and maybe Vrabel, I would want Josh McDaniels, and we didn't even interview him. I think he'll be a head coach, but he's not even looking at the Lions at this point. Okay, so I'm always skeptical, because I believe that the coach that doesn't come here, because look what's now happening across the league. Indy's got a head coaching job. I feel like Josh McDaniels is a perfect fit there. You got the Titan job that's going to open up maybe young cat.
He's a perfect fit, but that's also if Andrew Luck is actually going to play again. I mean, who was Mike Nagy, the new head coach for the Bears? He picked the Bears over because he was unsure of what's going to happen in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck, and if he's ever going to play again.
Okay, so doubling back to our Stafford talk, you are okay with the Lions kind of having the Rolls Royce of quarterbacks, having the guy that you assume is in the class of a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, that if you built around him, that you could win a Super Bowl and go to the next level with Matthew Stafford if you built properly.
Absolutely. If you build it properly, which I think the pieces are starting to come together. We started putting some pieces on the offensive line, even though they didn't pan out year one. The wide receivers in the second year, the Marvin Jones with Kenny Galladay, if we have all those guys healthy, we have a pretty solid receiving core. it's essentially an offense. We're just missing that running back.
And something that pisses me off, Jason, and something that many fans have tweeted us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, which is you're bringing in Matt Patricia. You're starting over with a new regime, okay? You've broomed out Jim Caldwell. You've broomed out an offensive line coach that obviously probably couldn't get the job done, and they obviously targeted that the schemes weren't right. But then at the same time, you bring in a new coach, a new regime, yet you keep the same offensive coordinator that ran this awful system into the ground and wasn't able to develop a running game. And for me, that's why people say same old Lions. It's because of the fact that you should just broom out Jim Bob Cooter. I know that when Matthew Stafford speaks, people will listen, but at the same time, all you got to say is, look, Matt Patricia, you should want to bring in your own people and bring in a staff. The dude's not stupid. If he's a rocket scientist, he should recognize that in 4 years, if you haven't, figured out how to develop a running game with the talent that you have, I feel like Jim Bob Cooter should hit the door with everybody else. See ya.
I'm not going to crush the Lions for this one yet because...
No, you have to crush them. It's a terrible decision.
But it's not set in stone yet. We don't have the coach here. Once Matt Patricia gets here, if he's at that point, then he's like, yeah, I'm keeping Jim Bob Cooter, because no matter how long it takes for him to hire offensive coordinator, whether he immediately says that he's retaining Cooter or we hear about interviews of offensive coordinators, and then he eventually comes to the reasoning that, hey, I'm keeping Jim Bob Cooter, it'll be frowned upon no matter what. Because it's the same thing when Bob Quinn when he started, that, he's going to look for his coach, but he stuck with Jim Caldwell. It's going to have that same feel to it, and that'll be the biggest mistake this Lions franchise can make ever since hiring Matt Millen.
See, the thinking is that, many people don't have faith in the Detroit Lions in making the right moves, because people will say that when you defend Jim Bob Cooter that, Matthew Stafford has progressed as a quarterback, his passer rating is solid, he is leading the team offensively, it's just that Jim Bob Cooter could evolve and get better. But I say this, you could also get better than Jim Bob Cooter. You can get maybe a new innovative offensive mind that could take Stafford to that next level where he is throwing for 5,000 yards, where he is throwing for a lot of touchdowns, and he can continue his path of success. See, what happens is, because of the Lions' history, it so damages people, they take the notion, and I think I'm locking in now on what Lions fans think. They would rather the notion of, I'll take what we have, instead of maybe even searching for better. Because of the fact that they have no faith that the Lions are going to get anywhere, they will go to the scenario and they'll go, you know what? I'll take a guy like Jim Bob Cooter because Stafford likes him and what we've seen in Stafford, and we won't go for better. We won't go for a new scenario in terms of trying to get better. I feel like in the NFL, you always got to search for that next best coach, and there's always somebody out there that's a lot better.
Yeah, we can't be settling, and it's got to be that I would rather have... for better or worse, bring in a new guy. Bring in somebody from college. I don't care. Bring in somebody who's going to be more creative with this offense. And I'm not saying that you have to run the spread offense and be slinging the ball 50 times and running crazy reverses. I just want them to, have less third and long plays. And when you do get to those plays, actually call a good play. Don't just dial it up a run or do a dump off to Eric Ebron or Theo Riddick that only goes, a yard before the sticks. We deserve a better offensive coordinator on this team. Matthew Stafford is a talent, and he should be able to prove why he's being paid so much money.
So do you feel like when it all shakes out that Jim Bob Cooter is going to be the offensive coordinator? Are you kind of 50-50? I feel like it leans towards it because you have the ability, Matt Patricia, to focus on that defense, get your philosophy in faster, while Jim Bob Cooter and Stafford basically run that offense.
I say it's 50-50 for me. I mean, in my heart, I want him gone, but you're right. It's 50-50. There's really no telling what this team's going to do. Matt Patricia comes in, I hope immediately. Thanks for all your service, Jim Bob Cooter, but peace out. I'm going to start a search for who I want to be all the coaches on my team.
Gotcha. Now, based upon what we've seen now, the AFC and NFC title games are set. Who do you like? Because it's going to be a fun Sunday evening. I think the action kicks off at 3 o'clock, and then I think the NFC kicks off at 6 o'clock.
In the AFC, it's hard to pick against the Patriots, But the Jags, I like what they can do on defense. I think they're really fast. I think they may prove some problems for Tom Brady, but if any team can game plan, it's the Patriots. So they're gonna be dumping off the ball pretty quick. They're probably gonna focus on the run game in this AFC Championship game. So I would still have to go with the Patriots, just because I don't think the Jacksonville is quite there yet. I think they may be too inexperienced. And on the opposite side of the ball, I don't have any faith in Philadelphia. I expected them to lose over the weekend, but they pulled it out somehow. But they're not going to be able to win 15-10 going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are going to go in there and probably stomp the Eagles.
Vikings, Patriots, okay. And then the Super Bowl, do you feel like maybe the first time ever an organization plays in the Super Bowl in their home arena, do you think that's enough of a factor to kind of overtake Bill Belichick and Tom Brady?
No.
I feel like it'd be a really fascinating storyline, a team playing at home basically in the Super Bowl, trying to go out there and defeat one of the best organizations in the entire history of the NFL.
This is the last hurrah for the Patriots. This is the last go around. Bill Belichick may retire after this game. Who knows? But if he gets the win, why does he even have to come back? How many? That'll be what? Is that 6?
Keep doing it. I mean, 6. I mean, literally this year, I cannot believe how perfectly it falls for the New England Patriots. But you also have to, many people messaged us and said, don't sleep on that Jags defense. If they go and they pin their ears back, get some turnovers, I got a feeling that game is going to be really close.
But do you not think that the Patriots are going to game plan for that?
But at the same time, too, who is behind the scenes in the Jags organization that has also had some success versus the New England Patriots?
Tom Coughlin.
Yeah, Tom Coughlin is an individual that really is a solid football mind. He goes over to the Jags after his stint with the Giants, and look what he's done. He's turned it around. You get the running back, you have a solid draft. I mean, the team sucked for so many years, so you're drafting high, and right away when he gets into an executive position, now you got a team that's already in the AFC title game.
He's not calling the shots, though. Doug Marrone is calling the shots, and where was Doug Marrone before the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Buffalo.
And he
stunk it up, right?
He was Bill Belichick's bitch.
Okay. So you think that this one is wrapped up and give the 6th ring to the New England Patriots?
I mean, I honestly am rooting for the Jaguars because I don't want the Vikings to win. I don't really care for the Eagles. I think if they had Wentz on their team right now, I'd be rooting for the Eagles. But Nick Foles and that garbage, I feel like they're a garbage team. I'd like to see the Jaguars, but just realistically, I think it's pretty much sewn up it's going to be Pats Vikings. And the Vikings are going to need a whole lot of skull magic to get that Super Bowl victory.
And I think they do. I do think they get it. I think it'll be a very competitive game. There's something to say about, having a week to prepare, and then you got a defense, you got a running game, and you have a quarterback who's just good enough, and there's something special going on with the Minnesota Vikings, and it would be fascinating to see the Patriots and the Minnesota Vikings. I just hope I really do hope it's not Jags-Eagles, because that would be
rough.
Oh, that would be rough.
Their color schemes are very similar, too. But I think I wouldn't be surprised Vikings Pats and Case Keenum just completely breaks down. And he has like 3 or 4 interceptions and completely tanks his free agent value.
We'll see what happens. Very good segment. I hoping that when the Lions make the decision with Matt Patricia, that this does work out, because my hope meter's going back up. I feel like the marriage of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia should be successful, but in the end, it is yet to be determined how this is going to actually play out, whether he actually gets to the postseason, makes mistakes in the postseason, because, Mike Tomlin made some critical mistakes for the Steelers, and he's consistently in the postseason. I kind of got early on that vibe that Patricia will get us into the postseason, but maybe that extra couple beats that you need to get over the hump, will that be there? That's what has to happen in the postseason when it comes down to those critical decisions. Do Matt Patricia and the Lions make them? Because history tells us that they don't. And so we'll see what happens. I'm excited. My hope meter's high. I've been telling everybody I do think this is probably the best marriage that can happen out there for the Lions. But if it doesn't happen, I mean, basically you're going to waste a career of the guy that you targeted to be the best quarterback in your franchise history. And if you don't get the job done, you've allocated a boatload of funds for him, maybe 2 coaches, 2 regimes, a general manager. A lot of collateral damage could happen if this doesn't move forward. And basically, the time is now. We got 5 years to get this shit going.
Yep, and we'll be able to tell what actually happened in about a year and see if we're in the playoffs and having some playoff success. Maybe we're getting our first playoff victory since forever.
I said it, man. I hope to see some videos. I hope to see some Lions heroics played to the theme of Titanic. Let's see what happens. All right, you're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant. We'll be right back. We'll finish this podcast out with reviewing the huge college basketball game that happened over the weekend. Lots of ramifications from the huge victory that the Wolverines pulled off.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Jason, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a great place to host all of our recorded audio. And if you're going to build a network, if you're going to build an audience nationwide and even internationally, you have to have a great host site. That means you generate links that people can listen to flawlessly. You have no problems uploading your audio. You get the product to the people. And that's what we've done. We've used Podomatic since 2013. We've only used one host site. The reason why Podomatic is so effective and so great for us, we record a podcast, we yell, we scream, we debate back and forth, we troll Matthew Stafford, we troll Lions fans, and then afterwards, we upload our audio quickly to Podomatic. It's so easy, even somebody that's not even tech savvy can manage Podomatic. So if you're looking to start a brand new project, you want to get in on the fun, get in on the action of podcasting, we recommend one host site and one host site alone, Podomatic.com.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Jason, what was that? Good stuff. Good beat.
Offset, Ric Flair drip. It's a trap rap.
Okay. I'm feeling it.
Really, John? You're feeling it?
I'm feeling it on this recording, baby. It's good. Good stuff.
Baby.
You know what I'm not feeling? Tom Izzo. My goodness. You know, when you have a rivalry game, Jason, and you have a team like Tom Izzo has, you got to go out there and you got to jump on your opponent right away. And many people, I think, are true when they assessed Michigan State's loss to Michigan. They felt like maybe Michigan State overlooked Michigan, or they felt like they didn't need to put forth the strong effort that they did, especially with Michigan coming in. They were playing hungry. They just come off of a tough loss to Purdue. I feel like Michigan was overlooked by Michigan State, and when Mo Wagner outplays Miles Bridges, it's really tough, and many people are saying that Tom Izzo was outcoached badly by John Beilein, that Tom Izzo's substitutions were poor, that he did not recognize that the individual guarding Jaren Jackson Jr. couldn't handle it, and so they just were unable to get the ball on the inside. And so many people were like, what is going on with Michigan State? That performance was eye-opening, and many of the Boo Birds, many of Tom Izzo's critics have come out of the woodworks and talked about that, yeah, Tom Izzo, in terms of what he's done with quality talent in the last 10 years, it hasn't seemed like it has progressed in terms of maybe getting to that next level where he's got talented individuals, but do they actually get better in the time he's worked with them to the point where maybe somebody else could have got more from him?
And that's what we see on the court, really, that's the telling point, is that the only real way that you have guys get better in Tom Izzo's system is if you see them play all 4 years. And by seniors, they're accomplished college players, and those are going to be the rocks of your team. We have to start questioning, is Miles Bridges really as good as everybody is saying he is? You know, he came into this season, we're thinking that he's going to be one of the guys up for the running for College Player of the Year. I think this Spartan team is really just in the middle of a complete identity crisis. I think that lost Ohio State shook them. Follow that up with the overtime victory against a Rutgers team who, it's Rutgers. You shouldn't be doing that against a team like that. And then you lose in heartbreaking fashion to your rival in Michigan. And I think if they would have came out and they could have taken care of business and get similar to what Michigan did to us, get a double-digit win over them, I think that would have put them on the right direction. But it just set us back even more. That what is this team and who's going to be the guy who's going to step up? You know, I know Jackson and Bridges both finished with 19 points, but we don't have a guy who's just going to step up, make clutch shots, and carry this team.
And my goodness, if you had told me there would be an individual in that contest that was going to step up, I thought it would be Miles Bridges. Mo Wagner, my goodness. You know, Michigan doesn't win that game without Mo Wagner's performance. My goodness, dude stepped up. It was really impressive. And dude last year was balling out, and he's kind of come to the table with some grit, some swagger, and he's kind of helped elevate that Michigan program. I really respect what Mo Wagner's game brings to the table. I like his game.
I think we have to, we maybe have to recognize that it's kind of a reversal of the football programs. You know, Mark D'Antonio doesn't get the credit that Jim Harbaugh does. And I think in basketball, I think John Beilein doesn't get the credit that Tom Izzo does, because you've seen John Beilein now time and time again. He's not getting the top rated talent, but he's able to get the most out of his guys. And, you know, you have guys like Mo Wagner, like Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman. The dude balls out. He's one of their best players. I mean, going into the past teams, you know, who would have thought Mitch McGary would have been anything for the Wolverines? And he was a boss in college basketball. And how often can you really say that about Tom Izzo's guys?
The one thing I want to add is this is the last year that it's going to be a situation where you have an opportunity to only play Michigan one time. They're going to go, the Big Ten is going to go to a more balanced schedule, 20 games for the conference season. And so it's locked in, guaranteed now until the end of time. Michigan State and Michigan are going to play each other twice every single season. It's how it should be. And so it's a disgrace, because I really do believe if Michigan State had to go on the road and face Michigan in about 10 days or 2 weeks, they would destroy them. I think this year was a perfect year to go 1-1 with Michigan and Michigan State, with both teams taking each other on the road, because of the fact that I do believe Michigan State kind of crumbled under the pressure. They didn't perform well enough, and they didn't execute. And again, what did we say when we started talking Michigan State regularly and talking about hoops?
Turnovers, scoring droughts.
Literally, that's what we said is the bugaboo. That's the Achilles heel of the Michigan State program. And it's so fascinating that in big games and big moments that it continues to happen. Lots of turnovers, lots of scenarios in which you don't keep up with Michigan in their scoring, and you go, wow. And you had the lead at halftime. So with the lead at halftime playing that way, you kind of had the feeling that maybe Michigan State was going to grind it out, because going into the game, people thought, okay, it's going to be a really close game. Michigan State's not going to blow out Michigan. But in the end, the talent should prevail. But the talent prevailed on the other side. And so when you look at it, Tom Izzo took the blame. He said there were some things that we didn't execute well that we got to get better at. But in the end, if this does result in a deep run for Michigan State, if losses like this can add up and you can, you know, have some things on tape where you can get better at, I do believe, if you just look at it now, I do believe that Michigan State probably has the more potential to have a deeper run in March. And you have to salvage the season, because this is a title contending team. That's the expectation. And I do believe that at the end of the year, when March shakes out and the tournament happens, I do believe Michigan State will advance probably one round farther than Michigan.
No, obviously. I would say that too. And I don't want to sound like I'm discounting the regular season, but if in any sport more than other, in college basketball, the regular season, aside from seeding, it doesn't matter as long as you get into that round of 64. That's where it happens, and getting hot at that point. So I mean, when they actually lost to Ohio State initially, I was okay with that, because I'd much rather them get their loss out of the way right now than have it start happening late February, going into the Big Ten tournament, going into the NCAA tournament, because you don't want them just to have that praise after praise after praise, especially if it's undeserved.
And I kind of hope it shakes out. However it needs to happen, I hope Michigan State gets that opportunity to play Michigan again in the Big Ten tournament, maybe in the final game. That would be amazing. If it all comes down to the Big Ten tournament and it's Michigan State in the final game, I think that'll be a nice opportunity prior to the tournament to seek revenge, and that'll be a fun thing, because my goodness, Michigan fans came out of the woodworks. They were coming in strong, talking about how Miles Bridges came back only in his sophomore year to get his ass kicked by Michigan at home.
Hey, they're just sad that they lost the season in football.
Yeah. So what do you think in terms of Miles Bridges? Do you believe that he is a mild-mannered leader, or does he have to kind of somehow or another shed that notion and become the beast mode that he's got to be in order to take this team to the next level? Because in a game like that, he should have been fed the rock a lot more in the second half, and he needed to kind of, step up. He couldn't make a three to save his life. He tried to go inside, and Michigan's defense give them credit, too, because Michigan's defense swarmed the hell out of Michigan State. They were on the ball. Many people on Twitter were saying, dude, that's the most complete performance by any Michigan team at any time ever under John Beilein, in that Michigan's defense, it was no joke. They came to play.
I think if you want to compare his play to a guy like LeBron James, right now he's being more of the facilitator, and he needs to be the LeBron James who takes over games. He's at least looked at as the best player on this team. He needs to be the best player on this team. I know Jaren Jackson may have more potential and maybe more viable in the NBA, but Miles Bridges, he's the older one on the team. He has to be the guy who steps up and carries this team when we have games like this. We need to come back next game, and I don't know, the dude just needs to ball out.
I just wish Miles Bridges would have committed to the 4 years, because there's some strong talent coming in at point guard. There's some more talent coming into Michigan State, and you look at it and you go, man, if we just get one more year out of Miles Bridges, you might reach his potential so that he can become. You got to remember, too, dude's a young cat, only a sophomore. So we're putting a lot of weight. But in the end, the reason why there's so much pressure on him is others have done it as freshmen. You know, teams like Kentucky, Duke, they just roll over freshman classes and they step up big. And so in his second year, you would have thought that the reason why you came back was to hone your craft and become one of those leaders. And you're not right now. And but it's still okay. The season's not lost for Michigan State. But if they don't right the ship quickly, I like the fact that they got 4 days in between the next game from now. The next game that the Michigan State plays, I believe, is Friday. They have a chance to practice, look at some film, and try to right the ship, but they got to get it corrected really fast, because people are starting to circle the wagons and starting to look at Tom Izzo and going, you know what, dude's been here for a long time, and sometimes, you know, whether or not you want to say it, similar to the question we had regarding Mark D'Antonio, we might have to ask that question pretty soon and be honest with ourselves. Has Tom Izzo peaked? And the dude's been there forever, and sometimes just being there for that long, you need that new voice in the room, that new young guy that can bring in some talent. And if he doesn't get that second title, I feel like the talk, I feel like the discussion is going to start to be had regarding, is it time to look for the successor for Tom Izzo? Let's go. It's time for Michigan State in terms of what he's built. You've gotten him to that level. I know sustaining it's not easy, but it's Michigan State basketball. If you go out there and get the next big guy and you find him out there and you target him, it might be time to have that talk. You got to get you can't just get to the Final Four every 3-4 years. You got to actually kind of now take the next step if that's the realistic direction you want to take your program in.
And I'd agree. I think you have to keep moving forward. And if Tom Izzo, if this is as far as he's going to go, you realistically should be looking for ways to advance your program. But I think you're crazy if you think that Michigan State is going to just fire him. I think Tom Izzo is essentially, for better or for worse, he has the lifetime contract.
Oh, man. See, I do believe that I look at him favorably, but at this point in time, when you bring in talent and your goal is, you come out and tell us your goal is to be the next Duke and to build your program consistently, how many more years do we give them? Another decade?
I don't know. Maybe it's just like a Michigan thing, like a state of Michigan thing, that we get so attached to our coaches that you can, unless they do something awful, if you're a legend, you're never going to get let go. I mean, look at Michigan with Bo Schembechler. Look at now Michigan State with Tom Izzo. And you can even look at the football programs now with D'Antonio and Harbaugh, that they seemingly have lifetime contracts. Is it a Michigan thing? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because, Michigan State was not a basketball powerhouse. I mean, they had the one national title with Magic Johnson, but prior to then, they weren't like on the national stage getting consistently to the Final Four. I mean, there was a stretch there where every single person that played 4 years for Michigan State experienced a Final Four, and that's a cool thing. But at the same time, if there is somebody better and you look for an opportunity to get that next young hot head coach that can bring in talent, maybe somebody from the Duke tree, you go pinch an assistant there, or you go pinch an assistant from Kentucky or Kansas, or you pinch an assistant that is a young up-and-comer offensive wizard and can do some things. I think you have to seriously take a look at it because, in athletics, the idea is bring in talent and win. And it's all about winning. And you do have a couple, demerits on your record when you have a team that even the president picked to win the entire tournament, and you go out to Middle Tennessee State.
Thanks a lot, Obama.
That was a huge demerit. And now this loss to Michigan is a huge demerit because it wasn't like Michigan State played their A game. They didn't come to the table with their A game. So if they come to the game with their A game and they're making shots and Michigan matches them shot for shot, then that's fine. But the way they played, unacceptable.
Unacceptable indeed. And we'll just have to wait until next week to see if they can start to turn around.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, Jason, because I don't want the season to go into the toilet because of the fact that I don't feel like it's a talent issue. I feel like it's a coaching issue, and maybe it's something that's mental. And that's the worst scenario to take place is if something's going on mental with this team.
Yep, we got to fix it immediately. But that'll do it for this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. Maybe, hopefully, the Patriots lose, and we can announce that Matt Patricia is the head coach of the Lions next week. Otherwise, we'll probably be going to be waiting until at least February 5th.
Guess what your homework is this week, Jason?
Do I have to watch some sports?
Mock Draft 1.0, baby. Start looking at who the Lions are going to target number 20, baby, because maybe, just maybe, if Bob Quinn can sit in that big boy chair, elevate his seat up a little bit, maybe his ass will get off the schneid and move up to get that Saquon Barkley. Because if the time is now, and you look at that schedule, I'm looking at it right now, the time is now, then your ass better find a way to trade up to number 4. Figure it out. Figure out how to get to number 3. If you see on that big board that Saquon's going 3 or 4, your ass has to move up and get it. Take the chance. Maybe you give up a number 1 next year, and a couple down the road, you make that move, because if you believe Saquon Barkley is the guy that gets you over the hump, pull the damn trigger and make the move happen.
So let's have 2 pieces of homework then. We have our mock draft that we see who the Lions are going to have at 20. And second piece of homework, we come up with a trade that will get us that pick to give us Saquon Barkley.
Okay. All right, Jason, let's play general manager this week, and we'll come back and report on next week's Motor City Sports Rant. Sounds good.
Until then, he's John. I am Jason. See you next week.
Go Lions! Yeah!
Yes.
Okay, nice, idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.